start, but before we do, I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to eat some of that pizza. There's quite a few boxes over there. Please eat it up. If you don't, we will force you to take it home as you leave.
We'll have to eat it all ourselves.
Yes, that's right. Also, if you're thirsty, there's drinks right behind this blue wall here. Yeah, I think maybe we can give things a few more minutes before we actually start. And I'm gonna double check the setup here, just so everybody knows. Your voices really more than anything are being recorded. It's live streamed on Twitch, so if anybody wants to rewatch this immediately, you can go to twitch.tv/DSM Web Geeks and you'd find it. And then eventually I'll upload it to YouTube eventually someday. So yeah, we'll kick things off here in a few minutes. Give me just a second or two longer. Great.
Oh, hi, Christian. Hey, wasn't expecting to see you here. Yeah. On LinkedIn this time. I'm going to put my calendar in this. Nice. Feel free to grab some pizza. There's hot water and beer back there. I had that back. Where was the pop at? Right in the yellows. Anything else?
For a second there, I was like expecting pop rocks.
I want some pop.
No,
Pop is just, I mean, like, we keep our company up, right? Definitely, I do too. There's a fridge on the right in there. I see it right announcements. That helps me with my planning. Speaking.
Speak much actually get something with playing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, so that's great. No, it's considered lots. Great. They also what you're yes, operating system. Yes. Yeah, I just pop. I've never used it before. It's pretty good. Yeah, I looked at it. It's been fine so far. It's mostly a few packets. Yeah. I don't know. I've been kind of on fence about black pack. It's still nice. And then you have the random situation, you just start breaking. You remember, oh, it's because I'm staying on. Yes. I always forget. The parts from that's good though. Yeah. No, I last time I installed it, I did it. I liked it, but it was good, but it took like 4 hours off my battery life. Low battery. Low. At least. No, maybe, yeah, I think it's all just like Windows, like manufacturer plus Windows, like it's specific. So they make this right better, right? The nice thing about that. So, good luck, buddy. Yeah. Unfortunate. Hopefully, you know, theory. Hardware is manufactured by same people. Thank you. Or a core group, and it should work together. Yeah, at least that's the.
Oh, I'm good. Okay, cool. Thank you for being patient. So how's everybody doing?
Good.
Anything cool and exciting going on your summers? Anything really fun happening?
Well, I just got back from a vacation to San Diego.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah, very fun. What's the temperature like out there?
It is like almost consistently like in the 69s.
Oh, okay.
It's amazing temperature.
Yeah.
It never gets above like 80 or below 60.
Nice. Yeah, I could go for some of that. Anybody have any interesting projects you're working on now within any interesting technologies or challenges you're facing? Is that a yes? Nervous yes?
Talking about how I was trying to get some do some LLM training locally, like
Oh,
update that
cool.
stuff at home using NVIDIA GPC or GPUs. But since I do online development in WSL2 Windows, like trying to navigate the translation layer to like get access to those things through WSL2 is a pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, those kind of issues stepping in front of like trying to I'm so happy to just be using a Mac for everything. I do not want to. We've had like so many events in the past where we used to do these things that were we called them dojos, essentially what we said. And we'd say, like, here's your challenge. All right, we'll break you up into groups, and then each of you try to figure this thing out. You've got an hour, go. And it was usually most of the time the people with PCs were just figuring out how to set things up and never got to anything. Yeah, it was always rough. But luckily we started using, like, I don't know, does anybody ever mess with they've rebranded it and changed it, but it used to be called Cloud9 when it first came out. It's like a online IDE, but you could build like Code Sandbox is essentially the same thing. They've got so many of those now that it's kind of equalizes the playing field, and those are no longer issues. I don't know if anybody's down for those kind of things. I don't know if any of you dig hacking or doing that stuff, but if you're into it, like, we can bring back some of the dojos we used to do. They were fun. It gave you a chance to see kind of what it's like to sit and pair with other developers, see how other developers work, what kind of like shortcuts they have on their keyboard, the weird ticks that they usually do, like chewing on their shirt or some kind of weird thing while they sit there and code. Like, it's fun. It's fun to see. Cool. Okay. Well, let's get into it. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. This is Web Geeks. DSM Web Geeks has been in existence for almost a decade now. It's been a long time since we've been running. Our focus is mainly on web development, but that is huge, it's broad. That's all over the place. So we try to bring you content anywhere under that umbrella. And if there's ever something that you're interested in hearing more about, please let us know. We can create a platform for you to speak. If you want to do it in just small increments, that's fine. If you want to give a full talk and full presentation, that is great too. If, however, you're just not all that into speaking, but there are things you'd like to learn more about, let us know and we can try and find some speakers specifically on a topic. We have successfully been holding our meetings here at Source Allies on the second Monday of every month. That's something you can kind of count on if you don't see our posts or announcements of when we have events. We post to Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Eventbrite and meetup.com pretty regularly. So if anybody consumes any of those channels, hopefully you can find us there. If not, just count on us being here on the second Monday of every month. These events are co-organized by myself, Ben, a couple others here at Source Allies, and it takes a lot of work to make these things happen and put this on. And if anybody's interested in kind of helping out grow this community and craft good content, or just be there to help, kind of get the word out and those kind of things, let us know. We can easily find something that we could use help on. There's lots of things that we could use help on. Ben, is there anything you want to say about Source Allies or the goings on around here?
Sure, yeah, I'm up there, so.
Go.
Yeah, okay. Looks like someone has a question, maybe.
Nah, that was me.
No, okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben. I work here at Source Allies, and I'm excited to welcome you to be here tonight. Justin and I have been putting together these sessions for the last 2 years, and they're pretty well attended now, but we're always looking for more folks. So if you like what you see, if you have a friend that you think would be interested, invite them to the next one. We're kind of ramping up our social media presence at the moment right now. Follow us on Facebook, go to our new company page on LinkedIn, give us a follow there, like our posts. It'll make people see it. It'll make us more visible to the tech community here in Des Moines. Very proud to be working with Justin, working with Des Moines Web Geeks, and just excited to have you here at Source Allies. Would love to meet you if I haven't yet. And if I have, would love to catch up and see what's been going on. So yeah, if you want to speak, if you have a friend who you know would be a great speaker, let us know. A couple posts that we've made send you to a Sessionize link, and you can actually tell us on that Sessionize page what you'd be interested in, or if you would like to speak, what topics that would be. If you are kind of someone who wants to speak, but don't necessarily have an idea, hit me up. I'd love to brainstorm ideas with you. Is it okay if I introduce?
Yeah, go ahead. The only thing else I'd say is restrooms.
Sure. Yeah, a couple housekeeping things. Eat lots of pizza or you're taking it home. We got water, pop beer back here in the electrical room. Restrooms are upstairs, take a right. And if you need Wi-Fi, that's the code you're going to want to use right next to the teddy bear. I am very excited. You are in for a treat today. This is Whitney Lovelace, and she is a delivery lead at Source Allies. I've known her for the last year and a half that she's been working here, and I've heard her do this presentation before, and I just think it's so valuable, and she's an excellent communicator. So without further ado, please welcome Whitney Lovelace.
Say it. I need it at the bottom.
Just hold the button still.
Can you hear me now?
Nice.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight. We're going to be talking about whether how you give feedback matters. My husband joked that I should just say no and sit down, but we're not going to do that. So I think it's healthy if you're sitting there to wonder who I am and why you should care what I have to say about this. And I got these nice headshots and I wanted to put one on the slide. So that's okay. But education-wise, I have a bachelor's degree in math and economics and minored in computer science. I feel like I've held every IT job you can have, from developer to PA to scrum master to data scientist. I pivoted into strategy and went back for my MBA from Iowa State. So I've been a manager. I've had a manager. I've been on a self-managed team. So there's been a lot of different situations of feedback. But if you knew me as a kid, or maybe now, you would not really call me a people person. I'm introverted, kind of shy, and I have anxiety. So feedback was kind of terrifying for me. It was like, am I going to hurt this person's feelings? But fortunately for me, for you, I'm a big leadership book fanatic. And so I've read a lot on this topic and put it into practice. And I say that partly because this explanation sketch says, so you say read a lot, if that's one book a week, 50 books a year, that's 3,500 books over 70 years. And your local bookstore has 30,000. So when I first saw this, it said, so choose wisely. And I am not at 50 books a year. I might be at 20. And I have like 30 years left until retirement. Maybe I don't get really into fire. And that's 600 books. So I can only read 600 more leadership books. And that doesn't feel like very many. So I used to be the kind of person that thought I couldn't give a talk like this, because I was just going to tell you about stuff I read that you could read, or podcasts I had listened to that you could listen to, or classes I had taken that you could take. And so why did you care what I had to say when you could have heard it firsthand? But we don't have time to think like that. Like, I need you to be reading books and telling me about them, because I can't get through everything I want to get through. So I guess at the end of the day, I hope you found these nuggets I just distilled down for you helpful. If not, I probably took you 24 hours of your life or more. You're welcome. So we're going to start with the resources, because these are all the great people you're going to hear their stuff from. Kim Scott's famous for the book Radical Candor. We're going to talk about hard conversations, not just feedback conversations. So the book Crucial Conversations. Carol Robin has a class at Stanford, and people have told her that that one class made their whole education worth the cost. Did you know how much a Stanford education costs? It must be a fantastic class. We're going to learn from Vanessa Van Edwards, who says she's a recovering awkward person and she teaches people school. And she's just a fascinating person. Her books are great. Gary Waljasper is a local consultant. Christopher Avery spoke at DevOps Des Moines a couple years ago, I believe. You may have heard of him. Big on the responsibility process. And I said I got my MBA. So if you are truly inspired after you leave and want a degree, Jim Summers, Iowa State University has some great classes for you. So enough about me. I want to hear a little about you, and I promise there's not a huge amount of audience participation. But I need you to raise your hand if you are intentionally trying to hurt your coworkers' feelings. Okay, I was a little worried someone was gonna raise their hand, and I didn't know what I was gonna say. So thank you. So raise your hand if you would want to know if you offended somebody. Yeah, because we're not trying to hurt anyone's feelings. But it happens, we're human. Or you would want someone to tell you if you were doing something that was holding back your career. Yeah, me too. I work as a delivery lead for Source Allies now. So I'm helping companies deliver software better, faster, stronger. I do a lot of team chartering. And I always ask, how do you like to give feedback? And across the board, people say, I just want it. Like they have some specifics sometimes, but people really crave it. But I've also found we're kind of nervous to give it. And so I'm going to go through some tips and tricks to try and make that process a little easier for you. I'm going to give you some formulas you can follow to think about how to say this stuff well, but also just some things to keep in mind. And then just how to have difficult conversations in general. So why is feedback important? Let me know if I need to try and move this little box at the top. This in there. All right, so I talked a little bit about just growth in general, also healthy working relationships. If you and I are in a team and there's something about me that just rubs you the wrong way, tell me. Like maybe I use the word irregardless a lot. It just irks you. Just point it out. It will make it easier for us to work together. And I have blind spots. I know I'm not perfect. So give me feedback after this presentation. You'll know how to do it. But there are things about me that my coworkers, my friends, I feel like they're going to see before I do, and they can help me grow. So this is my last forced participation. Any reason you like to give feedback or get feedback or have a story about how feedback impacted you? No, we're all here because of healthy working relationships and growth. Okay. All right, well, I nailed it. So the big question, does how you give feedback matter? And I'm going to say it does. So we actually have content for tonight. But I'm going to give you a couple personal examples for why it matters. So I had a manager once, her name is Sydney. She's one of the best leaders I've ever worked for. And I was kind of that employee that when you sat down for a performance review, I got a lot of, keep up the good work. Like you're doing great, keep it up. And she saw me, I think we're back. No, we're back. No.
Maybe the batteries are back.
Technical support.
There, let's see if we can change on batteries.
That's the button.
Well, while we're stalling, I can answer your last question.
Thank you.
Okay. So I got it kind of speaking code. I hope whoever's gave me this feedback is not going to watch this deal, but it's not that bad. I once got feedback that this was after COVID, and this was specifically in terms of having meetings over Zoom. I project too much in my facial expressions. Now, they said, maybe don't do that. Rake it back a little bit and kind of like try to emote less. I disregarded that advice, because honestly, I think anytime if you're giving a presentation or if you're on a Zoom call, like a lot of communication is non-verbal. You need feedback, and I think feedback comes with facial expression. So yeah, no, I disregarded that and still, as much as I can, show you how you're doing.
We like that. We were commenting that when you said about facial work, I'm like, so?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's what I think too. That's very strange advice.
So the dead monotone.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you for that story, it's a great example. So before my mic died, what I was gonna say, I had a manager named Sydney, hopefully she does watch this, because this is a compliment to her. But I wasn't getting the feedback I wanted, and she sat me down in a mid-year performance review. And she said, Whitney, I think you need to work on your report. Like you walk into a meeting, I was a data scientist, you walk into these meetings and you are down to business. You are there to get a job done and you start the meeting and you get your job done. But you don't say hello to people or ask how they're doing. And you need to learn to develop relationships. You're going to be more successful if you do. And so I want you to find some sort of training on rapport and work on it. And so I did and took a class. I found a Udemy course on rapport. And it was a game changer for my career. I am so much more effective today because someone was able to sit me down and tell me relationships are important in business and you need to take the time. Like, I'm just that kind of personality, right? One track mind. I want to do what we were there to do. And it really helped me. I've also had some not so great feedback. I was on it as the manager of a team. We were moved into an area and the leader of that area would constantly make like kind of little digs at me. And she'd say, I know you like to work on an island, or I know you're gonna have to collaborate on this one, or you need to communicate more. And I didn't know what she meant. There's like 1,000 ways you could change your communication. And I had no clue what she meant. And so finally I emailed her and I said, I'm so open to feedback. Like if you can tell me specifically what I did not communicate, I'm happy to improve. Or if there's a project and I didn't collaborate the way I needed to, please tell me what that project was so I can improve. But the way this is coming to me now just feels like an insult and I don't appreciate it. I never heard it again.
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know if I was doing anything wrong. Like it really hurt my self-esteem. But it wasn't useful. So yes, how you give feedback doesn't matter if you want it to actually be useful and you don't want to ruin someone's self-esteem. But you don't have to take my word for it. This is my dog Pumbaa. He's super cute. Most of the time, he's a distinguished little gentleman. Sometimes he's crazy. And we had to work with Pumbaa on how to give feedback because he's a little 14-pound Chihuahua dachshund mix. And these big dogs in our neighborhood would get off leash or something, and they would walk up to Pumbaa and just kind of tower over him. And poor little Pumbaa, just like, and the dog would start to walk away. And Pumbaa would be like, yeah. And the dog would be like, oh, I'm gonna pin you to the ground. And so one time we're on a walk, her husband has this dog on a leash. This Newfoundland comes up, goes to pin Pumbaa to the ground. Has to pick the dog up, swing him around like he's on a lasso or a merry-go-round, trying to get away from this giant dog. So we had to work with Pumbaa to be a little less crazy, a little more gentlemanly when he's with dogs, not so much the obnoxious aggression we're going to talk about. And now he handles that much better, and he doesn't yell at those big dogs. He chills and gives them more polite feedback, so he doesn't get swung around like he's on a merry-go-round. So take it from Pumbaa. The way you give feedback makes a big difference in your experience. So we're going to talk about some formulas for feedback, and it works in both these situations. There are kind of two distinct ways to think about feedback. One is task feedback and one is interpersonal. And I'm going to give you more tips for interpersonal because I think that's the one we struggle with more, but a lot of this works for both. So task feedback would be something like, you said 27 times in your presentation, or I don't understand what you're saying in this report. Like you delivered something that was confusing. Interpersonal feedback is more about our relationship with each other and how we work together. So it can feel a little more emotional and vulnerable, but it's things like I felt unappreciated when you said whatever, or the language used in that meeting was offensive. It's a little more difficult, a little more emotionally heightened. So I have a few extra techniques in that case. But before we get into how you should get feedback, you have to first recognize that you have any feedback to give. So here's some telltale signs. If something is bothering you, like you just keep replaying this meeting or this conversation in your head, there's probably something there that you might want to have a conversation with that person about. A big one for me is if I want to give up, I want to quit a project because I'm just like, don't like this. I need to talk to somebody. Is there something going on that I should get feedback on? You saw something positive about someone. I'm going to post a little bit more constructive feedback, but these all work for positive. I'm a big believer, and if you think something nice, you should say something nice. So pass on those compliments. Also, if you feel the need to say something to someone else about someone, good time to think about feedback. That can be complimenting. You're going to make that person feel great. Like if I'm complimenting you to someone else, wouldn't you want to know I complimented you? Or if you're venting, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, needing coaching or someone to help you process something, but it does turn into gossip if there's no action on it. So really considering those moments, do I need to talk to this person that made me upset? And then finally, you see a growth opportunity that would help someone achieve their goals. We all want to grow in here, I'm assuming. So pointing out, hey, man, I saw this thing that I think if you change would help you grow. Great way, you should get feedback. So kind of the main event here, what's the formula for success? So I'm mixing some Gary Waldrop's consulting with my MBA, but there's kind of 5 elements here that I think are important in good feedback. One is your intent. Then if you're afraid of anything, say it. When, what, and the impact. So it can be really helpful to just start off with, this is why I'm telling you this. We're on the same page. I'm on your side. Here's why I want to help you grow, whatever it is. So I think a big reason we don't give feedback is because we're afraid of something. They're going to take it the wrong way, or they're not going to want to present again if I critique them. So just say it, get it out in the open. It's almost like intent and anti-intent, but I'm not trying to do here. When you really need to be specific, it can be tempting to say a generality here, but help them picture the moment you're getting feedback on. And then what was the action or behavior? So what did they say? What were those words? What did they do? And then what was the impact it had on? So I'll give an example for task and an example for interpersonal. So in this case, we're going through the you said a lot. So if I wanted to give you feedback on how many times you said in a presentation, it could go something like this. My intent. I want our client to leave you as confident. So it's why I want to tell you about this. I'm afraid you're going to view this as overly critical, or I'm afraid you're not going to want to demo anymore. Whatever it is, just be open and vulnerable about it. When in the demo this morning, not demos in general, this morning, so they can remember it, process, think about what it was. You said frequently. You could count it. Sometimes that helps people. You can quote them. So when you were talking about this feature, here's exactly what you said. And then the impact. It appeared that you weren't prepared and didn't need all the material. You're just delivering very clear message to the person. Interpersonal. So again, this is more that emotional relationship kind of feedback. So in this case, someone said something to you that made you feel like you weren't that. So your intent could be, I respect you and I want to have a good working relationship. Like I'm having this hard conversation because I want us to be able to work together well. Get that out of it. They're going to be so much more receptive when they know you just want to work well with them. In your fear, I'm afraid you won't challenge my ideas in the future. Like I want that, but maybe the way you did it wasn't helpful to me. when in our retro yesterday, again, remember, we're not saying in general, we're pointing to a specific time. What you said my idea for a process would never work. The impact, I felt disrespected and that my opinions weren't valid. So you're clearly saying what happened and how you felt about what happened. So I really love this concept. Carol Robin, that Stanford professor, everyone says is really great. She talks about how there's always 3 realities in any situation, but you're only ever present or privy to 2. So you know your perspective, which is your intent, your background, your history, your life experience, everything that's got you to this point in time. And you know what you said or what you did. The other person also knows what you said or what you did, but they know the impact it had on them. They know their background, their history, everything that got them to this moment in time. So when you're giving feedback, you can stick to what we both saw, what was said, what was done, and whichever side you're on, either your intent or the impact that was had on you. But you can't start stepping into that reality you don't know. That's for them to tell you. So I can never know the impact I'm having on you if you don't tell me the impact I'm having on you. You can't know my intent if I don't tell you my intent. So stick to the 2 of you. So some things you want to do when you're giving feedback. Know your recipient's present. So if I'm on a high after a presentation, you might not be wanting to bring me down a peg right then. Maybe tomorrow is a better time. Or if I stormed out of the meeting upset, maybe following me and telling me that was the appropriate isn't the right time. It's like, give me tomorrow when I've calmed down. So you can also ask, can I provide you some feedback? Like, make sure they're in a spot where they can hear what you have to say. You also want to know your own intent and your own present. I was in a meeting a couple weeks ago and I left just upset. I felt like I hadn't been heard, that the tone wasn't respectful, and I was just in that I want to quit mindset. And it took me probably like 48 hours to like fully process what was my intent here, like what did I have to give for feedback, and to be able to deliver that in a calm demeanor without being upset when I thought about this meeting. So I gave the feedback as soon as I could, but it did take me some time to process. So a good thing to clarify before I go into this conversation, what am I hoping happens as a result? And I think sometimes we can kind of ease into feedback, but say someone's missed your last 3 meetings. There's a temptation to start with like, hey, is everything all right? Your intent with the feedback is you want to say, you know, I need you to come to these meetings. So if they said, yeah, everything's fine. Oh, okay. Like you kind of went into it, making it seem like your intent was just concerned, and your intent was concerned. Well, also we need to find a way for you to go to these meetings. So make sure you're clear on that. It'll help you structure what you want to say. Be blunt, be specific. You don't want to give me feedback on something that happened 6 months ago. I don't remember it. I'm like, why did it take you 6 months to tell me? But also be specific. And again, we don't want generalities. We don't want your, always critical. We want in this meeting, or when you said this, when you did this. So we both know what we're talking about. I have some don'ts as well. I lumped them all together because they can come out similar ways. Don't solution, assume, attribute motive, or describe the person. We are not giving feedback on personality. We are giving feedback on words that were said or actions that were done. And solution can kind of be a big one because good intentions accidentally become offensive. And the example I see a lot is someone's not getting their work in on time. And there's kind of 2 traps here. Is people want to immediately offer to teach them how to do their job. And you don't know why they're not getting their work done on time. So that can easily blow up of like, are you saying I'm not as good as you? What do you mean? I'm not as smart as you? Like, that's a trap. until they say they need help with something, that's when you can offer to help. The other trap is someone's turning something in late and you want to do the, is everything okay at home? And then that's we don't know each other well enough for that conversation, like, no. And it comes from a place of care and wanting to help. But if someone's just not on the same page and you're not sure what the problem is, just don't solution, let them solution. I don't say why someone did something. This is that attributing motive. You can talk about the who, what, when, where, and how, but why they said it, it's not good. I've had someone tell me that they were given feedback that they had a big ego. Like that's not feedback, that's an insult. There's nothing actionable there. That's you're in your reality of the impact that had on you, but you need to say what those actions and behaviors were. So what did it make you feel, not what do you think they were doing? Remember that I feel like you, or I feel that are not feelings. I feel like you aren't listening and you aren't listening are the same sentence, and that's attributing motive. What you really mean is you felt unheard, and that's harder to say. It takes a little more vulnerability, but you're gonna get a much better response if you come in with, I felt unheard when you did this, then you weren't listening to me. Very different, but so just remember when you want to say, I feel and add a like or that, you're probably not a feeling word already now. This is actually something my therapist told me about, but sometimes when you're having a really heated emotional conversation, like you feel strongly about something and you want to make a request at the end of it, this is a good way to structure that in a way that keeps you calm and not using language like you're not listening to me. So the technique here is observation, feelings, needs, requests. So your observation is when I see, when I hear. Again, you're sticking to that reality you both know. What happened? Then your feelings. I feel. I put some feeling words on the side. I feel annoyed. And you can stop there. But don't add that story to it of trying to attribute why. Like what are they doing that's they're not listening to you? Stay out of that territory. It's just what do you feel? Your needs or your values. So I value safety. I value respect and inclusion. I need to feel like I can say I don't know in a meeting without getting referenced. Whatever it is that you need or the value driving this, state that. And then you can make your big ask. So would you be willing to, whatever it is, you want to do something different? Maybe someone used an offensive term to you. So you can say, would you be willing to stop using that term in meetings I'm in? Whatever it is. But this is a good technique if you feel yourself wanting to go down that I feel like you're not listening road. It'll keep you more in how you're feeling and what your ask is and avoid escalating the other person. This is the radical candor 2x2 that Kim Scott's kind of famous for. So she talks a lot about caring personally and challenging directly. So she has these 4 states when you're doing one or the other, and you want to land in radical candor. And that's where you are challenging directly, but you're doing it by caring personally. And I think the other quadrants are interesting. So ruinous empathy, that's when you care personally, but you're staying silent. And sometimes we don't get feedback because we think we're being caring. I don't want them to be upset, so I'm not going to tell them. And she talks about having an employee named Bob, and Bob just was not turning in good quality work. It was sloppy. But Bob was really well liked. He was kind of sensitive. So she didn't want to say something that hurt his feelings. Like, what if he reacted? So she didn't give him the feedback because she thought she was caring. Manipulative insecurity is when you aren't caring about the person and you're staying silent. So she said for Bob, she didn't want to be viewed as the bad guy. Bob was well liked. She didn't want people to be like, oh, you're the guy, you're the person that made Bob cry. Like, oh, you're a jerk. And that's that manipulative insecurity where you're worried about what the perception of you is in this and not what's actually helpful for the person. And she talks about how she ended up having to fire Bob because he was not delivering. And the first thing he said was, why did no one tell me? But by that point, he agreed it was time to leave. And so she promised herself she was never going to do that again. She was going to care and challenge directly. I do want to point out obnoxious aggression. This is where I think Puka landed. But you can land here when you really care about someone too. So I really love my husband, but we work on trivia together. So we, like every quarter or so, we write questions and we host. And if I'm in the zone stress, I'll say something like, I don't like that question you wrote. It sucks. It's not fun. And move on. And eventually he'll be sitting on the couch and look at me and go, could you just say something nice? Please. And I forget in the moment to think about how he feels about what's coming out the other end of these words. So even though I care about him, I'm being obnoxiously aggressive. So I could say something like, I really want the questions to feel fun and fresh, and I don't want to ask the same type of question over and over again. And I feel like the question you just wrote, I feel like, don't do that. The question you wrote to me is too similar to the one we just asked. So I think we should mix that. That doesn't feel quite so intense as your question really sucks. Sorry. Great. All right, now we're going to dive into tips for difficult conversations. And the book I linked, Crucial Conversations, has some really good tips on this. It's anything that's high stakes, emotional, you think people are going to have conflicting opinions they're really passionate about. So this is kind of a side tangent to feedback. It could be feedback is your difficult conversation, but a lot of these things aren't necessarily feedback related. I do a lot of team meetings and you have to talk about a lot of things people are passionate about. So I've developed a little arsenal of tips for how to handle that. One is when I'm going to a meeting and we got some strong opinions going in here, or we might accidentally say something offensive. We're talking strengths and weaknesses, and if we don't phrase these well, we could hurt someone's feeling. I send out this table of shared expectations. It's based on the responsibility process. So if you're a Christopher Avery fan, that stages below the line should look familiar. But I send an email and I say something to the effect of, for me to feel psychologically safe in this meeting, like I can contribute and fully come with my opinions, I need everyone to agree that these are our expectations. And I'm going to share these at the beginning of the meeting, and I'm going to ask you to send me your expectations. And so some things on this list, even if you're not a responsibility process fan, I think these are things you would want. So denial. I don't want to go into a meeting where someone brings up a concern and it's just like, we don't care about that. I want to be in a meeting where someone brings something up and we ask for clarification. So it's like, oh, can you give me an example of that? Not that would never happen. I don't want people to be blaming people in a meeting I'm in. So I don't want to name, that's Sally's fault. I want to talk about where the process we all own together is breaking down. Justify, it's a personal pet peeve of mine. I don't like when people shut down a conversation. And that tends to look like we don't do that here, or some statement along those lines. So instead, you can share your concerns and ask how they would be mitigated. Like, we've never done that before. What would that look like? Or I'm worried about the cost of that. How would we afford it? That keeps the conversation going and doesn't just shut down whoever brought up the other point. Shame. I've been in a lot of meetings where someone says something to the effect of, I've only worked here 2 months, so and so's opinion probably matters more than mine, or take this with a grain of salt, or something that implies their opinion's not as valid as it is. If I invited you to a meeting, I want to hear from you. I don't care about any of that. You have a worthy opinion to share. So I asked, don't be afraid to make a mistake and just state it, whatever your idea is, confidently. Quitting is an interesting one to me. I don't care if you quit And you tell me why. You say, I can't participate anymore for this reason. I don't want you to show up to my meeting and just be quiet because you're upset. If you're upset, share your concerns, give that honest and direct feedback, but still, if you're showing up, I want you in it. I don't want you to just kind of quiet. And an obligation, I don't like meetings where the loudest voice wins. So I ask everyone to make sure we're working toward a compromise. So like I said, email it out ahead of time. Let them know these are my shared expectations. I want to hear yours. And then at the beginning of the meeting, people will share. So I've had people say things like, I need to know that no one's overcommitted in this meeting. That if you say you're going to do a task, you're going to do it. And I can count on you. You might be surprised what you get. But I have found that just like we all want to act like this, but just saying it ahead of time makes us more aware of what our language is. And we don't accidentally slip into one of these word traps. Another thing that I find helpful is what story are you telling yourself? So notice your own behavior and how you're feeling and what that soundtrack in your head is. And make sure you're getting back to the facts. So I had this happen recently. I serve on a board, and for whatever reason, I was just feeling like they didn't value me as much as they valued everybody else. And so I sat down with myself and I was like, what are they doing that makes me feel this way? What did they say? What did they do? And I could not think of anything. So that made me realize maybe it was my own insecurity coming out here. So I said, I'm gonna pay attention to this and make sure there is something they're doing. I'll write it down and I'll talk to them. But if I can't come up with anything, I think I'm just being a little self-conscious. And to this day, I still haven't figured out what it was. So I think they were fine. But I wouldn't have been able to give that specific when and what in the feedback. There are some story traps you can fall into. So if you're saying it's not my fault, it's all their fault, there's nothing else they could do. You might not be telling yourself the whole story. I'm a believer that there's always something you could do, even if it's quitting with dignity and saying I can't participate anymore. There's still a next step somewhere. De-escalating. We're going to talk about someone goes to 100 and you're trying to have a conversation and you just like they're not in a spot to have a conversation. This was a Vanessa Van Edwards talk or tip. She calls it the nut job because the acronym is nut. And I think that just sounds rude to the person who's feeling emotional because we all get that way. But it's her work and I didn't want to change it. So that's fine. But first you want to name the feeling. So she gives an example. You have an employee who didn't get a promotion, but they really wanted, really felt they earned. And then you're talking about it. And all of a sudden it's like yelling or tears or something like they're at a limit now. And so you want to be listening for emotion words. Hey, I feel misunderstood or I feel unappreciated. And you want to validate that feeling. So say something like, it seems like you feel unappreciated. Or if they're not using emotion words, how are you feeling? Really make sure they know that you understand where they're at. And just that feeling heard, like, okay, you do get where I'm coming from with this, that'll start to calm someone down. Once you've named the feeling and you've accurately named it, yeah, that is how I'm feeling. You move on to understand. So you're going to unpack that a little bit. What is that driving value? So if I didn't get a promotion, I could be upset because I wanted status or more responsibility or access to information or salary. There's a lot of things that I could want in that situation that make the rest of the conversation very different. So ask questions like, tell me why you feel this way. Really try to understand what it is that's making them feel the way they feel. So once you've done these two, and you're sure you've done these two, and you will know because the tears will stop, the volume will come back down. You'll see, like, okay, we can have a conversation now. We've de-escalated this. Then you can move on to transform. And only when they're back down at the level they started. And there you're trying to show you value this person and you're looking for a solution. So depending on in the not getting a promotion scenario, what it was that was driving their value. If I wanted more salary, that's a very different conversation than I was feeling unappreciated. Or I want more responsibility, and you can have a good conversation with me about what that path to the promotion looks like next time. So if I'm wanting more responsibility, you can talk about why you didn't think I was ready for it yet, but here's how we're gonna get you ready for it. And that transforms my situation into something I can work on. So questions for this one can be something like, how can I help? Or what do you need to feel better about this situation? So those are my tips and tricks. You're probably like, that's great, but I don't have any difficult conversations planned, or I don't have anyone I need to give feedback to. So I will just sit on this until I do. So I got some stuff for you. One thing you can do right now, you can start as soon as we leave. Develop psychological safety. So you cannot have an organization that gives good feedback if people don't feel safe to give feedback. They have to feel like they can say something without feedback in the end. So Ken Pullman and Christopher Avery, I took a responsibility process workshop with him. And I really liked what he had to say. Psychological safety is an institutional responsibility. It means you can expect others to assume your best intentions, even when you make a mistake. Trust is assuming others are acting with their best intentions. So to feel psychologically safe, you have to assume positive intent. So if someone does something, you're like, assume they weren't going out there to hurt your friends. Remember when no one raised their hand that they were going around trying to hurt everybody? It's operating from that mindset. I know that you didn't mean to make me feel upset, but I want to talk to you about it. And I can act knowing you trust that I'm not going around trying to hurt your feelings. So what can you do to develop this? Just assume positive intent. Avoid making assumptions. If someone does something, just learn to spot, okay, I'm assuming why they did that, and I don't actually know that fact. I'm going to assume it was a positive thing. Develop relationships. The more you get to know someone, the easier this is. Ask people questions. That thing I said I was bad at, ask people how their day was. You can go to team building events, but remember how we said you want to care personally? It's hard to care personally if you don't know the person. You can do a team charter. I like to do this with my teams where we sit down and we talk about what are our emotional triggers? What are we good at? What are we not so good at? And that sounds really intense and heavy, but a lot of teams tell me they really like it. And it helps them get to know each other. And there's weird little things we all have that just hook us, and it gets it out in the open. So, and I've had teammates tell me, I need to feel safe. I need to feel like I can tell you I don't know something and you're not going to judge me. And knowing that up front really helps. Or I have this weird little thing. Respect and inclusion are two that I always say. And if we have a team folder for documentation and you go rearrange that without asking me, it just rubs me the wrong way. So people know that, like, just put a heads up, like, hey, I think I have a better organization system. And then I feel more included and respected. And I know that's weird. I know that doesn't bother a lot of people, but that's mine. It just irks me for some reason. So you get all that out in the open and you feel like you're not walking around eggshells around each other anymore. You start to understand how the other person ticks. Another thing you can do is encourage questions and ideas. So lead by example. Make it okay to ask a question, challenge something, share an idea. You can have listening tours, one-on-ones, whatever it is, but meet with people, hear them out, let them know you want to hear them out, and you're not going to reprimand them for an idea. If you're like, I really want to just create a culture of feedback. I want to make this the norm. There's some tips and tricks here. You can ask everyone on your team to share how they prefer to receive feedback. It just makes it feel more normal. It's like, this is a thing that's gonna happen, and let's know how to do it. I am someone who does not like to get a we need to talk message. You can say, hey, I wanna talk to you about your presentation. I have some tips for you, but please just don't be like, no context whatsoever. Some people have totally different preferences. Just knowing that makes you feel more comfortable. You can share your goals with your team. Let them know you value their feedback. So I'm working on getting better at presenting. And I would really love anytime I present for you to tell me how I did. It makes it feel more normal. You can discuss your emotional triggers and natural child tendencies. Like I was talking about, to do that, I just put a bunch of emotional triggers up. So inclusion, respect, safety, having hard problems to solve. I have a list if you want it. There's business cards up here. You can email me. What are you naturally good at? What are you not so naturally good at? So what's going to really take some effort for you to do and get started versus what is going to energize you? And knowing that about your team can really help you start to get used to talking about feedback. And then another thing I like to do are feedback practice sessions. So this is taken from Gary Jasper, but he does what he calls Scary Gary as a service. So I like to do Scary with me as a service, and I'll have quarterly presentations with our company, so anyone could come. And we do something like this, where I talk about, we'll pick a topic. So maybe it's how to receive feedback. And we'll talk through that. And then I write 3 to 6 scenarios of like, here's a situation you would want to give feedback. So someone's coming in to work late every day, or someone said something that offended you. And I write out the scenario and then we practice. So you would pick one and I would be as scary as you want me to be. So sometimes people are like, can you just react like a normal human being? And sometimes people will want me to try to trick them. And it makes it feel more natural. You get to practice how you phrase all these things together. So that's something anyone could do. You could call a friend to practice if you have feedback you want to give. You can call me. And then another thing you can do as soon as you leave is request feedback well. And I used to think I was really good at feedback because I asked all the time, do you have feedback for me? And almost everyone said no, because it's a yes or no question. So be specific. What do you want to really think about? If someone gave me the feedback, I was blaming about how I asked for feedback because I was putting all the work on the other person and not saying, like, I'm working on this. I want you to tell me about this. So as some examples of good, better, best to go through. If you're going to ask for feedback, I do ask that you're actually open to feedback. You're looking for honest truth about what you could do differently, positive or negative. And it's really nice to express the personal importance of feedback. But I want to hear from you for this reason, or here's what I'm going to do with this feedback when you tell me about it. So the examples, avoid just that, do you have any feedback for me? Again, you're putting all the work on the other person to think of everything you've ever done in your life to tell you about. And they're just going to get overwhelmed and most likely say no. Or best case scenario, I would get like, let me think about it. And I would get weird feedback when I did this, like, oh, okay, that was odd. Like this person in a meeting once said they didn't understand my question. And I repeated the question, it was fine. Like it just was like, okay, I think that was a big deal. Better. I'm trying to improve my communication skills. Is there anything I could do differently? Again, you're narrowing that in. So, okay, communication, I need to think about that, but it's still a yes or no question. So they could just say, no, oh, so you're doing good. And then really good would be, I want to make sure you're in the loop with what our team's working on. What could I do differently with the format, frequency, or level of detail in my updates to better accomplish this goal? So that's not a yes or no question necessarily. So what could I do? Not, is there anything I could do differently? You're telling them why you want the feedback from them. And you're really narrowing in on what you want. You're helping them give you feedback. You're not putting a burden on them as much. And people are going to love to give you feedback. We like to help each other. We just want you to ask us well. So that is everything I have for you today. I hope you learned something. If you want any of these slides, definitely let me know. And I hope you go out and start working on psychologically safe places, cultures of feedback, asking for good feedback. And the next time you're in a situation where you need to give it, you feel a little more prepared. Does anyone have any questions? Great.
You said you send out that like template before big meetings and stuff about like expectations you have for people in the meeting. Has it ever like gone over poorly?
Yes. Yes. I used to call it ground rules, and then I was told that sounded like I was treating people like children. So I call it shared expectations, and that's better language. I also sent it before a lot of meetings, and they were like, this is the fifth time you sent it to me this week, Whitney, I get it. So now I only use it when I'm worried about the outcome of the meeting. So the people in your working, some of them are like, I've never seen you do that. Some of you are like, it must have been a lot of difficult meetings with me. But I make sure I'm taking my moments. And I did get feedback. I could tell I upset some people and asked them what I could do differently. And another thing I learned is I was reminding people of bad experiences we had together. So when I walked through it, I would use an example of something they had said, not necessarily like trying to be mean, but just to like, it was my baggage. It was the history that informed that moment and it wouldn't happen again. So that's why it's written the way it is, where it's a little more generic, and I'm not intentionally trying to bring up bad memories for people. I'm trying to make sure we all feel better going forward. Good question. Oh,
Do you ever have, like, do you see a big difference between feedback in person versus online or something?
yeah, so question feedback in person versus online. I actually was listening to a podcast, Kim Scott. She had something really interesting to say. So she would say, in person is always better. But if you can't be in person, she recommended calling on the phone versus Zoom. And she said there's just like some distracting like the noise in Zoom with how you see people. So yeah, the family research shows if you can't be in person, phone is better. Definitely don't Slack people. Don't just like write it. You want to deliver it verbally. I have Slack people feedback that's gone horribly. So don't do that. Anyone else? Like,
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying not to talk to the pillars, but so you mentioned earlier, I forget which slide it was, it's something to the effect of being from, when we've had feedback for something, don't sit on it. So I sat on my feedback and I wanted to give it, I had a rough meeting to call it, the details aren't important, but I want to half apologize, half give constructive criticism. It's been roughly 2 weeks-ish. Is there a good way to rehash that whole thing, just watch it?
yeah, so the question you didn't hear it is, you want to be prompt, but it's been a couple weeks since a meeting that felt rough. And I think only you can really answer that. 2 weeks isn't 2 years, like it's probably a reasonable amount of time, most likely. And I think vulnerability is really powerful. So if you say something like, hey, this really bothered me, I probably should have told you sooner, but I just wasn't sure how to say it, or I like that example I gave where it took me like 48 hours. I told them, I was like, I could not deliver this to you any earlier because I would have started crying. Like I was upset. So I just being real and authentic will go a long way. Any other question?
Going along with that, with going prompt, is there like, would you want to put like a somewhat of a delay so that it's not, you're not like impulsively giving feedback with.
Yeah, and being prompt, should you give yourself at least a little delay? There is a saying, praise in public, criticize in private. So I'd say at least that delay. If you have something constructive, don't call people out.
In the midst of the report.
Yeah, that's probably not good. And I think you need to know your own intent. So make sure you know why you want to give them that feedback and what you're trying to say, and you have it well crafted. And you don't have to like perfect it by any means, but those kind of 5 key points you can articulate and ensure you can articulate them accurately, then I think you're right.
So a lot was said regarding getting feedback. How about what are like some points on receiving feedback?
Yeah, well, how about receiving feedback? I think this is another one where assuming positive intent is good, but you don't have to accept the feedback you get. So if someone gives you good feedback, it should be telling you why they want to give you their intent and the impact it had on them. And if they articulated it well, you should have enough information to say, like, oh, I didn't want to have that impact on you. I appreciate your perspective. I'm going to change. Or you can say, you know, like the example, I just don't agree. It's okay for you to disagree. So you don't just accept it. Do seek to understand truly what, and not everyone's good at it. So if you do really want feedback, you can kind of walk them through these steps a little bit. Why are you telling me this? You help me. You said every demo ever. When was the last one? Like, you can help them, but a positive intent. Big one there. Anything else? All right, well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, y'all, thank you so much for coming out. I'll just,
You see now?
yeah. That's it, that's the end of it. We're all done. Yeah, grab some pizza on your way. Again, this is streaming for the next 2 weeks over Twitch, and then eventually I will publish it to YouTube, which we do have a YouTube channel, and I have been working on it. I have about 2 years worth of videos to upload. It sounds worse than it really is, so I'll get it. Cool. Thank you very much for coming out, y'all.
I hope you're not distracted, you're gonna get a flood of videos.
Yeah.